Hey, welcome. It's really lovely to see everyone. I hope you've had an amazing New Blood Festival. It's one of our proudest events in terms of just getting a new point of view and new energy around this amazing industry that we're all a part of. So I'm Kwame Taylor-Hayford, D&AD president. I'm also the co-founder of a creative practice called Kin. I'll let my fellow panelists introduce themselves. So over to you, Jordan.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Jordan. I'm the Digital Creative Director at Design Studio.
Hello, everyone. I am Kladi, and I'm Senior Design Evangelist at Adobe and also Community Advocate.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Foley. I'm an Executive Creative Director at Monotype. So for anyone that doesn't know, we're a type foundry, the biggest type foundry in that space.
Hi, everybody. Thrilled to be here. My name's Kadine James. I am the founder of the Immersive Kind, and I'm also the Global Director of Innovation at Artificial Rome, which is an immersive production house.
Awesome. So we'll jump into it. We're going to be talking about design and technology, and it felt apt to maybe start with formative experiences. So my first question is, I'd love for each of you to describe the first moment that you interacted with a piece of technology relative to your work. You know, what was that like? How did it feel? How did it change the creative work that you were doing? And maybe we'll start with Jordan.
Lovely, thank you. As a digital creative, I was always kind of playing with technologies across the web. Started off as a Flash designer, went into web design, but the moment where it really changed the course of my career was starting to mess with physical computing. So we was doing some projects with Google at the time to just explore different types of ways of interacting with designs. Previously, it was always touch screens or mouse interfaces, but I started to explore more about gestural interfaces or how we might get close to beacons to interact with design. And that really just shifted my way of thinking about how I am a creative. It's not just about pixels on the page and finding that button, it's that experience. So yeah, really reshifted the way that I thought about technology and how I should design for that platform.
And just to build on it a little bit, how did it make you feel?
Like a beginner all over again. I felt like I was top of my craft. I was making really beautiful things, and then all of a sudden I was back to the ground floor, having to rethink about every single interaction and uses in a whole new way. So intimidating, exciting at the same time, but yeah, feeling like I had to fight again to get on top.
What do you think, Kladi?
So I started my career in marketing and PR, and my very first job was at the UN in New York, actually. But on the side, I was a graffiti artist. So imagine me, like 21, having a job at the UN, and then running, with a rattly backpack of cans, doing trains with a mask. That's why I love to say that design kind of saved my life, because it brought together the aspect of colors, but at the same time allowed me to have a new career, because otherwise working at the UN and being a trained graffiti artist probably end up arrested or fired at the very least. I'm also dyslexic, so the very first approach with technology was when I started to design a Gestalt typeface to allow people to read thanks to proximity of shapes. And then I decided to turn it into an installation. So I went from walls into creating something with perspex, so cut it. And in order to do this step, I needed to learn how to trace it with Adobe Illustrator. So now I'm Adobe Illustrator girly, and I'm tied to the product so much because that's how I started. Literally, I needed to trace my graffiti font into shapes in order to cut it through. And it was, to go back to like how it make you feel, it was so empowering and exciting because it enabled me to transform my idea, my wall, into an actual physical piece that then became like an interactive piece as well.
Very cool. Tom?
Does it have to be digital technology, or can we be quite broad with this?
I think it can be any technology.
I mean, I'll be quick. So, I mean, the first thing piece of technology that really informed any sort of creative spark. It was a calligraphy pen. I was quite young. And if you think about technology broadly, I mean, writing is a form of technology, like the first form of communication technology. And I was quite obsessed with that quite young. But then later in my career, I suppose the big kind of monumental digital technology that changed things was the iPad and iPhone. I had just finished university. My first job was in an agency that was, basically their whole pitch was they take existing print magazines and then transform them into digital magazines on the iPad. And it was very hokey. Like for anyone from the 90s who remembers CD-ROMs, it wasn't too far away from CD-ROMs. That's what it was like. But the interesting thing about that was it moved very quickly, and it was this idea you had a dispersed team. So we had developers in India, designers in London and New York. This idea you had a global team working on a project was one part of it. But also like the role of typography in that, like how, you know, the first few issues would have typefaces from the print magazines used in the digital magazines, and they didn't work. Legibility issues, rendering issues, and my interest in typography just kind of was already there. It was very much the case, but I got obsessed with typeface design from then on. That kind of changed my direction. But yeah, I think that's yeah, iPad and iPhone was a big moment, and it made me feel very stressed. That was because it all moved very fast, and now things are moving so much faster, and I'm even much more stressed. Yeah.
Yeah, Kadine.
Mine was a record player, and dancing and working in a record shop and being a raver and going out and climbing out of the window when I was 15, not coming home, and just raving a lot and being immersed in rave culture. I'm proud to say, once a raver, always a raver. I've then gone on to go and work with amazing DJs and pop stars and put them in mocap suits where they've been driving their performances at Metaverse music festivals and on digital stages all over the world, and also putting myself into digital fashion and wearing AI-generated fashion experiences to perform as a DJ in various worlds and spaces, including Decentraland and Spatial. And then also I wanted to talk a little bit about video games, because I was a massive fan of Sonic the Hedgehog. Anybody remember the first? I was there with you all playing Sonic, massive thing for myself and my little brother. And then have gone on to build, you know, games in Fortnite, which we've just taken on to Times Square in New York, which has just happened, and then building in Roblox and creating with Unreal Engine. So those were the two things that came to mind. So gaming and raving.
I feel like that was an important question to ask, because there's a lot of talk now about how technology is disrupting and innovating our industry, but the reality is it's always been doing that. And so I think what's beautiful, about what you've all shared is that you have been excited by it and you've embraced it, and it's allowed for new expression in your creative practices, which is awesome. Before we go further, I wanted everyone on the panel to pick a piece of work that has inspired them and that they've created to share with you all, to just demonstrate how the industry continues to evolve, but also strike the balance between things that are human-made, but things that are also made by machines. And I'll kick it off. I wanted to show a piece of animation that developed with my team for one of our clients, MailChimp. And what I love about it is that all the tools that are available made this work possible, but this work definitely couldn't have happened without human ingenuity and imagination, and honestly, the human hand, doing sort of cell drawings and animations to fuel and to create something very unique and sort of special. So we can play the video now. Thanks. And again, it's all about the beautiful marriage of what the technology facilitates, but also what your imagination can dream up. So I'll pass it on. I think Jordan, you're next, right?
Yeah, thank you. Lovely stuff. Really beautiful to see the combination of both. But I've picked a bit of a cross-section of the work that we do at Design Studio, somewhere between brand work, motion work, digital work, trying to mix them all together and try and paint the same picture that I think you told. It's when we're facing unique challenges and we need to bring a bit of a human touch and craft, but how we can inject technology at all these points, twisting the way that we use the tools at our disposal to find weird and wonderful techniques and outcomes. But yeah, should be a fun one.
Beautiful stuff. Wow. Kladi.
Super fun. So, apologies for how much I made you wait for delivering the video. There is a reason behind it. I was probably the last one submitting the video. And I started by putting together the graffiti piece, everything that I know I was going to talk about. And then I thought, as I mentioned, and I put an accent on it when I introduced myself, I'm a community advocate for Adobe. That means that sometimes and often I love to step back to make sure that I can empower you guys, either by spotlighting creators, so please feel free to come and say hi afterwards and connect with me, but also to inform. And that's why I picked this video. So this is not my art, but it's something that I feel that we do not talk about as Adobe, and it's something that is so incredibly useful for us creators that are now starting to implement AI tool in our creation and general technologies. So what you're going to see is the introduction of content credentials. What content credentials are you guys aware of what content credentials are? Hands up. Okay, that's exactly why I'm so glad. I feel we don't talk about it enough. So they're basically, when you've got any food and you've got all the ingredients, that's what content credentials are. So there are the info label that will inform, and you can literally upload it on a website, which is the Content Authenticity Initiative, will inform anyone on how that piece of art was made. That means that if your piece of art is an integral 100% human-made art, it will just have your name on it. And if you have used any AI technology model or any image, it will be linked within the image. And the coolest thing is that it also works with screenshot. So if someone screenshots your art from your website, and you have with Adobe Photoshop or through the content credential website, just simply put your name under your art as an author, no matter where, even just with a screenshot, that you will be able to claim the authenticity of your work. So this is the video. Hopefully you'll find it useful. If you want more info, come and grab me afterwards. So that's what it's about.
first, okay. Just to put this into context, so about a year ago, the studio team at Monotype and the executive creative director team decided to take a piece of content that we do every year called the Trends Report, which is probably our most popular piece of typographic content, and to kind of turn it on its head a little bit. So it had traditionally been basically a report of what type had been used in the previous year, what was popular, and put into kind of categories. And we still do that, but we added another component to it, another layer, and we called it revision. And the idea was that when we do these reports, we make these buckets of, kind of grand or macro themes that are informing the kind of creative trends. But rather than just gathering and kind of collecting, we decided what if we were to respond live to each of those buckets or those themes as a live project? So this year, for the last, 12 months almost now, we've undertaken this revision project, and essentially it's looking at macro themes that are affecting how we work, our industry. And this is one of the outcomes or one of the activations from that. And it's looking at the role of type in multimedia, and in this case, particularly around sound. And we all know that sonic branding has become a thing. It's very popular at the moment. A lot of sonic branding agencies. So we collaborated with a kind of AI kind of driven sound technology company. And we created this it's an online app where you can go through the process of generating an AI soundtrack, and then it will select a typeface for you based on the emotional attributes of that sound. So it's this idea of like translating and mapping emotions from one creative medium to another. And this is just one example of the kind of visual output. So there's a much broader kind of detailed sort of project online. If you want to check it out, you can check it out on our website. This is just a cool visual of that. So essentially what's happening is the sound is AI generated. It's where the type is all from our library. It's all human made, basically. But this idea of like trying to map on emotions onto type. I think I've said enough. Let's have a look at it. And I forgot to say, sorry, Audio Socket is the collaborator. They've been amazing. Check them out. I forgot to mention Audio Socket was the AI sound people. Thank you.
Amazing work, everybody. What a thrill to get to talk to you a little bit about our world. So we produce a lot of games. We also do a lot in Unreal Engine. And we're also really interested in linking the physical with the virtual and bringing audiences in from all over the world, from any destination. So we've put a little show reel together, which is going to show some of the experiences that we've been producing for some of the world's biggest brands, including Mercedes-Benz. We just did a big production for Diesel, which ran as part of a AAA game experience, but also ran in stores in Tokyo, in Barcelona, in Paris, in New York, and was a global online experience where we invited people in store to come and join the players online and build community through a launch of an NFT drop, and then also bringing in the rap star Little Dre, who is a brand ambassador for Diesel. We captured him in mocap, and then he came in to perform a virtual concert inside the game that we built. I think we've also got a bit of the Mercedes-Benz interactive billboard where you stand in front of the billboard and it captures your movement and your choreography in real time and brings you into this driving experience that we did for Mercedes. So we've put a choice selection together, but ultimately we specialise in VR, AR, mixed reality and virtual production. often powered by MetaHumans and Unreal Engine and Unity. And we're also doing a lot with AI. I've just presented an AI version of myself. She can speak 120 languages. She can show up on stages whilst I'm in bed asleep or out in the garden having a gin and tonic. So she's working hard. Yeah, we're kind of really exploring the intersection of art-driven experiences for brands and culture. And doing a lot of productions for big exhibition halls and spaces all over the world. So I'll let the video play and I'll shut up now. I've actually, I just wanted to say that we've opened up the Legacy of Tomorrow experience, which we dropped at Metaverse Fashion Week, which is live. So there will be a live link if you all want to get your own avatar and come in and experience the fashion pieces that we've brought to life in Unreal. And if you're interested in learning more about what we're doing, please come and find me afterwards. I'm really keen to chat to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kadine. I might stay with you because everyone mentioned AI in a lot of what was shared. So I'm curious, how has AI impacted your process or how you think about your team or your company?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think I've just come back from China, actually, with the World Economic Forum, where I presented a Chinese-speaking styled version of me. She's much younger. She wears different hairstyles and wears clothing that I wouldn't necessarily wear in the real world, and that's what I love about these new tools and applications, including Midjourney and Pika and Runway, and all the tools that I'm sure everybody's playing with or exploring within their practice at the moment. So, I mean, I've been really fortunate to be picking those tools up and using them as part of my journey as an artist and as a creative technologist, and I've got to also work quite extensively with Synthesia AI, where we set up a shoot with me being captured by Synthesia. So I have this synthetic avatar of me that, as I say, lectures and also shows up on various stages. So I'm also doing a lot with D&AD and exploring this opportunity to use the technology to create and push it forwards as a storyteller and as an artist. And then, to your point, I think we've also been exploring it, with early kind of concepts and iterations and unlocking new ways of thinking about these new tools. We were painting with paintbrushes, or I'm drawing in VR, in virtual reality, reality with a headset on, or building worlds in video games. I just feel like AI is just another tool in the box that can be used in order to co-create and to unlock new possibilities for how we create and make art, and I'm all for that.
What about you, Tom?
What was the question? Sorry. No, I mean, our relationship with AI at Monotype, AI has existed in our tools for years, over a decade, mainly around searching a very large library of typefaces, which are very poorly organized with very bad meta tagging. So we've used technology in a very pragmatic way. And then in the last maybe 5 years, we've started to look at it and how we can work within creative processes. And we have we've published an AI code of ethics on our website, which is a commitment to say that we will only train on typefaces that we own, any technology around typography and search. And anyone that wants to opt in as a partner foundry can. And then the same for the tools we make, that the commitment is to help them that they exist to help designers do their work, whether you're searching for a typeface in a large library or you're making a typeface. When I'm with you, I think the more I read about AI and kind of my relationship to it is not really using it. I'm really involved in helping our engineers and kind of technical experts build these tools. So basically they're tapping into our brains as creative experts and trying to replicate the way we think, and that can feel uncomfortable sometimes. But I guess when you're doing stuff like that, you have to understand what that contract is or what that interaction is. So I trust that we're doing it for the right reasons in terms of helping designers design faster, and where that could be of a huge benefit is in parts of the world where typographic choice is limited. We're very spoiled in the West. We've got a very simple, efficient alphabet that can be endlessly iterated upon very quickly, which is we have this abundance of typefaces in our Western languages, but in Chinese, Japanese, all the Indic scripts, that's not the case. They're so complex, technologically they're harder to do, and they're more expensive to make, whereas AI will make all that more affordable and will lead to new kinds of, new kinds of industries, typeface design industries appearing in these parts of the world. So I'm positive about it for that reason. I think it's a positive thing. But if you zoom out and look more globally and bigger, it becomes very scary for me. But we're not talking about that right now, okay? I'm talking about something else.
Are we?
I don't know.
Keep it positive, Tom. Keep it positive.
Sorry, guys. Slipping back into my depressive mire. Sorry.
Kladi, Adobe's, of course, on the forefront. You have Firefly. You have so much that you're doing to enable all the amazing creatives here to realize their thinking. I'm eager to hear, I guess, your point of view on how AI is going to become even more a part of the work that we do.
Yeah, so I just wanted to start like a step back, because right now we talk always about Gen AI. Your question is about AI. So AI, the difference, of course, is like, the artificial intelligence was already included in majority of our products. If you're a Photoshop user, object selection tool, generate workspace, or the content-aware workspace that it was powered what we used to call Adobe Sensei. That was like our AI, which was a tool to facilitate our workflow and making selections, especially much easier, and all the time-consuming tasks much faster. Now, I do often present on stage these tools, and we got to a stage where in the past, I could talk through each step and I could explain what it was happening. Well, right now, I don't even have the time to explain what the machine is doing, because by clicking literally one single button, and in the past, my go-to phrasing was like, and just in a few clicks, you'll be able, no, now it's like, bam, and it just happens before I can even tell you what is happening. So I think it's the speed now that is incredibly increased to start with in terms of, enhancing productivity, which I understand, and I think we had like a little bit of a icebreaker. There is a lot of emotional involvement in the time that you spend with your art, but when you focus more on the objective, if the tool allows you to get to your main goal faster, I would definitely think that we need to adapt to new workflow and perhaps understand how to spend our time and what to focus on. Part of the Firefly suite now, there is boards, which is focused on experimentation and brainstorming. I'm personally testing it. It's now in a limited beta. If you're interested to test, let me know, because we are opening, to creators that want to expand into it. I personally spend, I test it continuously. I'm learning how to prompt. I'm learning how to, bring elements together. So in terms of how the tool, definitely they're going to impact the workflow. But something a little bit more deeper than that is how our job is changing, right? Because so far, I think that up to this year, from, 2022, when the big Gen AI, started to become a little bit more mainstream and accessible, we always talked about tools. I think that now we need to rethink how to reshape our professional, day-to-day. After our beautiful chat that we had, it was when we introduced each other, it sparked so many interesting thoughts in my head on how, for example, photographers, they can really monetize on that. Because if you know that a client is going to use your photo shoot, your 10 pictures, to then recreate a full campaign, now that means you need to be aware of that. So that's why when I talked about the dragon is out, learn how to ride the dragon, because the dragon is powerful, can spit fire, you get burnt, but if you ride on top of the dragon, that means that you have a very powerful, way of moving through your journey. So for example, if you're aware that your clients now are going to use your picture to inform a data set to then build a campaign, well, those pictures now are worth a year of work. So instead of charging £2,000, maybe it's the case that we start charging way more, because our style and our choices of the shoot that we are delivering to our client are actually going to give them a bigger, span of work. So I encourage all of you to have these conversations with your client to understand how your work is going to be used. Don't be afraid. If they use AI, embrace it, because your work is just become more valuable. So that's perhaps what I want to leave you with in terms of reflecting on how to, even what are you charging for now? These services are going to change.
I think I 100% agree with that. And in a world where your perspective is the most unique thing, and it's informed by your lived experience and by so many things that make it distinct, that's the real value. So knowing how to talk about that and how to sort of value that becomes a very important conversation. And maybe it's a good bridge, Jordan, to, as we think about the next generation of talent who are coming into the industry, what would you encourage them to prioritize? How are you thinking about people that you bring into your company to help ensure that, of course, there's got to be knowledge about how to use the tools and the technology of today, but ultimately we're here to talk about ideas. And yeah, how do you balance that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you spoke little bit about getting to your ideas quicker. I think it's about getting to ideas that were out of your reach before. There's a fantastic quote from Tim Rodenbroker of, asking AI to write your creative code is like asking someone else to chew your food. Chewing's not all that. I'm not too bothered about that. It's the idea that we can accelerate that process, and people getting into the industry, just jumping into these tools, using them to supercharge your creativity, because everything's going to look beautiful, because we're building the machines to make beauty just standard. It's the ideas, the creativity, your personality, your take that you need to inject into this machine to jump those steps. We're going to all reach beautiful outcomes. We're going to ask a prompt to make me a gorgeous photo shoot, but it will be the same as everyone else's unless you're bringing your character, personality, your take, your background into what's being produced, rather than just decoration and noise. It's great creative thinking that comes through.
Kadine, I want to come back to you because you're on the bleeding edge of a lot of this.
I'll take it.
What do you look for when you're thinking about new talent that you're bringing in?
Well, I'm really lucky I get to lecture on this stuff and lecturing on AI for photography and for fashion at Vogue College in London, and also at Marangone. On top of that, I'm also doing some interesting stuff with Innovate UK and Bridge AI, where we're running programs to support creatives that want to get hands-on with these tech tools and technologies. What we're looking for when we're looking to bring talent into our team, to your point, is energy and what they can bring in terms of their mind and their creativity and their insight and how they're going to shape and move and innovate with everything that we're going to be building within our team and within our studio. And one of the things that we're also looking for is that adaptability and having that kind of mindset that is always exploring or looking under the rock, right? That's how I like to describe it, and always looking for something new. But then also we're really interested by voices that are different and that are saying something different. And we're also really keen to get young talent involved with tools like Clo 3D. We're really keen for them to have an understanding of Unreal Engine because it's a big part of our wheelhouse and production. And then also, we're really keen to see that they're using the tools of our time, right? So going back to the work that Adobe's doing, also thinking about Leonardo AI, thinking about tools like Midjourney, Vero, all of these new tools and applications, and being able to show that and demonstrate how you're using that, but not the same way as everybody else. So we're looking for that spark of energy that will take production into a new dimension. So those are the kind of skill sets that we're looking for, and embracing everything that's happening, because I don't think we're going to put a lid on it. I think it's the dragon is we're riding, and it's going in such a fast direction, right? So I think as an educator, as an artist, and as a practitioner, I say embrace it, pick up the tools, and don't be scared to use them.
Yeah, Tom, I'm eager to hear your point of view too.
Yeah, I mean, I agree totally with everything you're saying. It's an unprecedented opportunity as well as a huge challenge, this, right? So every new technology has had this phase, especially digital technology, where it came in, there was a bubble and a flurry, the bubble popped, and then a more stable economy emerged from that, a more stable creative economy. And I think within that, I think for every young creative are unprecedented opportunities. You're going to have, I think, a lot of business model disruption. I mentioned that earlier. I tend to go that way. I'm very strategically minded. But if you think about like the big players, like the Omnicom, the Publicis, I mean, now they can be smaller outfits can compete with those kinds of agencies, and they can compete doing more interesting work. It becomes more economically viable. So there's more smaller studios doing more interesting work. That's an opportunity for you guys. And I think, but in terms of what we're looking for, I don't think changes. You're looking for young designers to have new ideas, to challenge, to be themselves, not necessarily to always be like the most creative or the most outlandish, but each of you have your own strengths and skills. Some of you will come into a creative career and end up in strategy. Some might end up in new business development. Some might end up in an executive position. You have untold ability, collectively as well. So I think I would just suggest that it's a journey. All creatives will have the same story for you. You went in one door and you went up one stairs and out another door and up another stairs. It's not a linear journey, and just kind of you have to go with the flow to a certain extent and try not to get too worried about it, because it's inevitable to kind of be fearful of this new sort of technological wave we're facing, and it is a wave. It can be overwhelming, but you have so much opportunity and potential to just do interesting things, and just try and stay focused on that, I think.
I think that's why I wanted to put it a bit in context, all the technological shifts that we've experienced. And I think everyone touched a little bit on it in their intro, whether it's like CD-ROMs or, working with Dreamweaver back in the day. And I think there's always a bit of social media was a big thing for a while, and now it's, to your point, normalized into a bit of an economy. I think, we're going to go over this hump, and then things will sort of settle. And I think it's curiosity and your ability, like Kadine said, to be adaptable. And I think sharing your own perspective and owning that, that's going to carry us forward. So I guess maybe I'll close by asking if there's any advice that our esteemed panel would give to a young person coming into the industry. And I will start with you, Jordan. What do you think?
I think the summary of all of this is jump in both feet. It's fearlessness that's going to beat us lot, who are probably a bit more terrified of technology and AI and the change. But it's the fully embracing it, making it your superpower, is going to real set apart and empower everything.
Kladi?
Well, I feel like we are a very lucky bunch, right? We are creatives and creators. So I think we already are in a place where we have more opportunity to shape this new world, because we are problem solver. That's what creativity is a big part of. So I think that there are so many other professions, like imagine a lawyer having to deal with AI. I think that can be much, much scarier. So I think that we need to highlight the positive. We are on a side of the industry where we already have within us, if you choose this path, the tools to solve the problems and to adapt. I do also think that as much as we are a little bit more scared as an older, because we are just used to older tools, but also is our responsibility to alleviate this anxiety. And I have two pieces of advice which are connected. One is do have the conversations. Talk about it, inform yourself. Just the fact that you showed up here is great. And then I want to leave you with a quote that I shared with you guys as well in the chat. I know this can be fearful and it can give you anxiety, but there is a quote from the Eastern world that talks about how to deal with fear, with Mara, with negative thoughts. When anxiety and fear knocks at the door and you go to open the door, nobody's there. Just the act of showing up to your fears is the first step of making it disappear. So well done for being here. That's a first step. And keep going and keep this conversation open.
Tom?
Again, great advice. I'm not qualified to give anyone advice, so it's true. What I would say, I think what's helpful, what I find helpful with this whole sort of technological question is I think it helps to put ourselves and our work and our industry into context and look at how these technologies are affecting other parts of the world, other parts of society, other parts of culture, because that's where you're going to apply your skills and solve problems with these technologies, right? If you end up in branding, you're going to be selling to people in a new kind of economy. If you're working in service design, you're going to be solving problems for people in the context of climate change. So for me, it's kind of, as a young designer, anything I would suggest is to just kind of open that door, read as much as you can about the technology and put it into context, put yourself into context. And whenever you feel anxious about this stuff, put yourself into context and it will all seem a lot more manageable.
My advice is to get out in nature and connect with nature more and get off of social media. And also connect with your friends and your network and human beings and look in one another's eyes. I think there's so much in doing that and spending time. And also believe in your self-worth and believe in your art and in your passion and your creativity. And I know that there's so many amazing creatives in this room, and what an honor to get to share a little bit of some of the stuff that we're doing with you all today and connect with you. But my piece of advice is to spend more time with the people that matter and make great work through collaboration. And I'm always really interested in this approach with, working with artists, working with scientists, working with engineers. What's the architect doing? What's the robotics engineer doing? How can I bring all of those people together to go and do something that's going to change the world or make an impact or that's going to leave a mark for good on the world? That's my little takeaways for today. But thank you, Kwame, for for these brilliant questions and for guiding us so expertly.
Thank you. And yeah, round of applause for our awesome panel. Thank you. Thank you all for listening. I think we have probably time for one or a few questions, maybe. Helena, do we have time? Yeah. All right.
Thank you very much, guys. That was a wonderful panel, and it really helped to stave a lot of things. But I kind of wanted to get to one particular part. I mean, Kwame, being that, you know, you guys are doing D&DA here, new festival. I see a lot of wonderful artists out there, like real human, doing the real thing. And any time in the world or any time in history, it would have been like just the perfect scene. But there's this sense of like there's something looming at the background, obviously, which we all know, which we all talked about. But the thing is that Kladi made a good point. She said, you know, you get a piece of work that is done, and that work is done, and that brand, they can use it for another year. The problem is, normally that 1 year's worth of work, it would have been done maybe after 3 months, they had to get another artist. After another 3 months, that means that now, rather than having 3 people that would have had work, it'll be 1 person. The question is that how do we stave the change in terms of, because it will be somewhat of a painful change, how do we stave, as employer of people, and as people that will be employed, you know, with brands, how do we stave the change to be able to make that transition while hopefully keeping our head above water? And the very final question is, in the next 5 years, when AI can do everything, what is valuable anymore? So I don't know if that makes sense.
Wow. Well, since you mentioned me, I'm just going to take it here. And that's why I was talking about inform. You know, so being here, you already learn more and you became more aware. If you are, you're talking from like a freelance or business owner perspective. So that's when you really have to, you know, switch gear. It's a new way of doing business. And that's why I was talking about new services. So when you need to own that. So when you know, have your interaction with your client, in the past, you know, I used to run a branding studio. So one of the first steps was for me to educate my client, and what I was doing with branding is not just a logo, you know. It's the same conversation, but it is just implements a new kind of services. So if you're aware that they're gonna use you only once, because the output is going to be, I'm just going to say the output for a full year campaign, well, now you know that your unique perspective and your shooting or your design is going to fit your work. So you're going to have to change the fees, and you're going to explain why. And I think it's very reasonable, you know, because at the end of the day, if they want to grab something from the internet, well, that's something that someone else can do as well. So here goes their differentiation. That's why you're coming in, and that's why I love your final advice, because that's what brings who you are. Building connection, building conversation, spending time in nature, spending time with your loved ones, chase your passion. For me, it was graffiti. It can be making pizza. I don't know. But that shapes who you are, your taste, and then will make a dent in what you offer to your clients. But then you have to own your proposition if you're a freelancer, if you're a business owner. So inform yourself, learn as much as possible, so then you can educate your clients.
I think, yeah, sorry. It's a great question, and I agree. And I think one place where the type industry is slightly ahead of the curve with regards to other parts of the design industry is how we protect IP. So I know there's a lot of people in this room who think like fonts are too expensive, or why do you pay for fonts? But a lot of time and effort goes into making a typeface, and the type industry's been facing this problem with your fonts being used without a license for decades. So look at that. Look at those business models and structures. How you can kind of package differently, your services, which are your IP or your output, into different kind of scalable packages. Pragmatically, look at it. There's some really interesting models out there, and we can have a chat afterwards, and I can give you some direction if that helps.
Thank you.
You asked a question about, you know, how do you stave the change? And what's that? Is it Star Wars or Star Trek? I can never remember. But I think resistance is futile. I just don't think that there is any staving of anything. But I think what gives me hope and what makes me feel very optimistic is that you look at the industry today, and I'll talk more broadly about advertising and design. I don't know. 50% of what we do didn't exist 20 years ago. Like, look at the advent of digital and the internet and social media and what that's created or what that's meant, and how many new jobs and opportunities that's unlocked. So I think we're at one of those moments now, and I feel it's more productive to put your energy into thinking about what the future's gonna look like, and skating towards where the puck's gonna be. So to Kladi's point, new services, new models for how you value your perspective and your creativity. Yes, you probably won't have 3 people doing that job that they used to do, but you're gonna have 1 person doing that job and 2 people doing something completely new.
And you can use ChatGPT to write a new contract
There you go. Done, done, done.
with higher fees.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So in my experience, I'd say creativity is decision making. And most of what takes time, if you're sufficiently skilled, is the decision making process. In speeding up things through generative AI, do we risk losing quality?
I think there's too much conversation, in my opinion, about speed and efficiency, and there's not enough conversation about being still and being bored and just sitting with your thoughts and coming up with ideas. I think that's partly on us as an industry. I think we've made it about time and materials, but there's a famous creative director, Lee Clow, and he was asked, how long does it take to come up with a great idea? And he said, oh, it's easy. It's like 5 minutes. I just don't know when that 5 minutes is going to be. And I think there's something to that. And I feel we have to go back a little bit to valuing that and helping protect for that time to be still and to sit with our thoughts and to not, someone said this, I think, yesterday, get all the bad ideas first. Get all the bad ideas out first. And then you can get to stuff that's really transformative.
And if I can just add something, like, that is what you're talking about, in my opinion, is the intention. So to me, that comes way before making things happen, and it's not replaceable, and that's the uniqueness. So, yeah, the click of a button, make the things happen fast, but you need to know, there's no intentionality in what the output is. The intentionality is within you and why you're doing what you're doing, and that takes time and takes a lot of decision making, which is not replaceable.
And you're also looking at new processes and ways of working, like to build on that point. Like, I find creativity or ideas are not an instant moment. They're a long, drawn-out process of thinking and reflecting, and it doesn't come like that for me. It never has. And I think my instinct with AI and then working with it a bit and how we work is that it's changing not just the timeline and the quality, it's creating a whole new way of reflecting on work. So I think it's hard to say whether that's a good or a bad thing yet, because it's not common, but that's also not a new problem. When you've tried to squeeze creative teams to do more work quickly, they always produce shit work. So you've hit on something that's a universal truth, that we've been fighting that battle for a long time. And well, you might have to fight a little harder now with these new sort of, this conversation around efficiency, but I don't think it's not going to be the death nail of creativity, I don't think. Quite the opposite.
I do think there's a truth to the fact that from a production and execution standpoint, you can get to things way faster. But I think for me, having the conversation about ideas and that initial inspiration is important to contextualize. Yeah.
I also think looking back on mistakes as well, sometimes learning from your mistakes or a piece of work that you thought wasn't good enough, but then revisiting it has actually been quite enlightening and a big part of growing and developing and honing your practice over the years. So that was my kind of thought on that. And making decisions collectively, with your team, and taking time, to really think, and having that space to breathe, I think is something that we try and do. within our team. We often go to galleries and look at art, you know. So those are the sorts of things that we like to do, and bring everybody together, you know, over dinner, and spend time to reflect, and to celebrate, you know, get the wine out.
If I can just add one quick thing. The positive part of the speed is that perhaps you can fail faster. So, you know, I go through many versions of things that I don't like. So that, to me, is like a positive with it.
I guess I'll stand up. Hi, I'm Bailey Davis. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Yeah, I just had kind of a long-winded question. I feel like you guys have kind of thrown around the word empowerment a lot, and personally I feel a bit of skepticism around that word in the context of young people, especially when it comes to the reality of how AI is affecting young people now, young creatives, and it seems like AI is empowering efficiency and productivity, as you guys have mentioned, and I've seen that this is leading to mass layoffs in a lot of sectors, not just creative industries, but also entry-level job positions are being cut out as a result, making the job market extremely difficult to break into. Yeah, I also feel that this push for AI kind of diminishes the value of putting time into your work, which I think as an artist is quite important. And with a lot of young people feeling this way and experiencing these specific effects firsthand in regard to AI, I'm curious to know what you guys see as the future for young people just getting into the creative industries, with AI seeming to mostly empower corporations instead of the individual artist.
I'll jump in on that. So I think everything you shared is true, but I feel it's temporary. And I say that because I mentioned before there's this emphasis on speed and efficiency, to your point, but I think when everyone has access to the same tools and when everyone is mostly using the same prompts, everything is going to start to look the same, you know? And I think that's where your, again, unique perspective is going to be even more valuable. So my sense is everyone in this room, you know, us included, we're learning to embrace the tools and get good at working with them and using them to get our, again, early ideas and thinking out. But I think part of the beauty of it is when you start to have that level of comfort being in that world and using AI as a companion, and then starting to do with it the very unique things that honestly only you can do because you have your lived experience and perspective that no one else does. And I think that's going to become much more valuable because, again, like, no one wants to be the same. All these corporations, yes, short term, are rushing to, similar to all of us, get comfortable with this new world and start to understand it. But once we've all reached a certain level of fluency, I feel there's going to be more imagination that we can realize, you know, working with what's at hand. So I don't know, I still think this is an industry that is very exciting for anyone that cares to be a part of it. Will it be a bit hard to get that first opportunity? Yes. Will you increase your chances of getting that first opportunity if you know how to use the platforms and the tools? Definitely. Will you have a greater chance if you join forums like this and connect and have real conversations and, you know, get off LinkedIn and sending cold emails? Yes. You know, I think it's going to give you what you choose to give it in terms of how much you lean into the process and choose to not get frustrated and choose to persevere. So I think that's my point of view on it.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you flagged. It is designed to make things cheaper, faster, more efficient. But it is removing elements of the job that keeps us from being truly creative. When I entered the industry, it was bad work. I was doing crap a lot of the time, late into the night. I don't see that anymore. I think when we look to bring in junior talent, people with new ideas, they're coming equipped with far more skill sets. They've taught themselves Unity through ChatGPT. They're ahead of the curve, and it's those opportunities and being able to access high-end 3D renders that you can't get into in that world. I think it's going to be so exciting for the junior levels where you can get into the industry and start doing real creativity, proper work that's really exciting, rather than the stuff that we'd all rather not be doing when we get into this idea, and not being artists. We don't want to be production machines. We want to be artists, creatives, and make something meaningful and interesting.
So my first reaction, first of all, everything that you said is true. It prompted me into a question, like, is the problem AI or is the problem fear that AI brings to the table? I think that the real challenge that you guys have is that you need to establish new workflow. So it's the change. So you have a higher barrier because the way in which the work that you do and then the industry has been done is changing. So you need to find a new way in which the work is made. So that takes some time to adapt. But that's also a very, very important place to be, because you're shaping how the next 10, 20 years of work are going to be done. So if you do put in time, I learn from younger people. When I work with Firefly, which is an AI tool that we have, but they are teaching me things like on how to use, and we implement it. So we have people that start to work with Adobe and start to become insider and work with us, because you guys are telling me how the actual machine works, because you are in a place where you have a completely fresh approach to it. So I would definitely say focus sometimes to understand how these two, for sure, that's extra time in which you're not doing your job and you have to take extra time to figure it out, this problem. But I think you also have the great opportunity to be on the forefront, and in the next 5 years to be a leading person in your industry. So it's also a great opportunity.
I agree, all really well said. And thank you for that question. That was an amazing question, really clever. Again, I'm going to try and put another sort of component on this. I think I agree with the things you've mentioned. I totally agree. And I think this whole conversation around AI and efficiency has exposed things that were already there. So lack of empowerment, inequalities, the odds being stacked against students, particularly in certain countries in the world coming out of the creative industries, because often the education industry in those countries are bloated. And that's not a criticism of educators or institutions, but if you look at the UK, the size of creative courses are massive. Like they're often under-resourced, not enough tutors, not enough facilities. So people coming out already before this wave were feeling a little bit under-equipped, and now this has happened, and these universities are trying to catch up. So I think it's a really great question that deserves a much bigger discussion, but I think that's a really important component to this too, is that it is amplifying problems that were already there, as well as all this other stuff. So keep that in mind when thinking about it. This was always a challenge for young designers. It's now gotten harder.
I think that's a fantastic question. What was your name? Thank you so much for such a thought-provoking question. I was thinking about this project that I'm involved with, working with nursery school kids and primary school children, called Little Stems, and looking at, starting from nursery and primary school, embedding new technology and approaches to how we can educate from a really young age so that people don't get left behind. I also think that there is a really good use case for AI being used in education in remote places around the world, and there's some incredible work that's being done, particularly with AI to be used as a tool for education in remote parts of the world. But also I think that government, tech companies and the billionaires that you're referring to also have a role and a responsibility to ensure that we have all of these tools and applications, but they're used for good and that people don't get left behind. You know, we're at the cusp of a new wave and the next industrial revolution is taking place, right? And we're all aware of that. And what will that mean to the future of jobs? What will that mean to the future of the multi-billion-dollar creative industries that we all work for and we're a part of? And making sure that we figure that out for society, you know, and I think there's so much work that needs to be done to address that. I also think that we need to be giving these tools to schools. I think that the tech companies in Saudi Arabia, they've just released ChatGPT, given it to all citizens. We need to be thinking about these sorts of models and initiatives so that we upskill and that we don't leave future generations behind. So I think that's a big role for the government, for industry, academia, and law enforcement as well, you know. So that's my kind of take on it. There's a lot that needs to be done, and we need to ensure that it benefits the world and society as a whole.
Can I have my little last addition?
You can have as many additions as you want.
With all of these, do not underestimate the power of the hardcore foundational work and things that you study. I see a ton of portfolio. With my experience in the graphic design industry, I can spot someone that has been lazy and just used AI, and someone that has knowledge of color theory, photographer that have been in the field and have been shooting morning, afternoon, night, they know the haze, they know how the, always, you can tell. Professionals can tell. If people want cheap work, they go to get cheap work. If people want professional work, they have eyes for skills. So this is all great, AI is great, but do not underestimate foundations and knowledge.
Unfortunately, we're out of time.
Ooh, okay.
Sorry, but thank you, everyone.
Cool. Thank you.
I have my little, one more second.